Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bridge Cultures Special Journey. My name is Virginia Ruiz. I'm a volunteer of ISIC. And today we have an interesting conference about the journey to Romania. I will present the inviters, but first we will go to our video. Welcome, everyone. So, hello, how are you? Today we have the Bridge Cultures. For those who doesn't know, the Bridge Cultures is a series of debates that we discuss about different cultures. This year we are continue discussing different journeys, and today we will go to Romania. We have Adina Oprea and Kim McCaul. Let's introduce them. Hello, Adina Oprea. Hello, Kim McCaul. Welcome.
Thank you, Virginia.
Hello, thank you.
Adina Oprea is a volunteer of ISIC as well as Kim. Today, Kim McCaul will present his experience in Romania. And Adina will be with us because she's Romanian, so she has a lot of experience in the country, of course. So she will be with us. Please, Adina.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, everybody. Bună dimineața, bună ziua, bună seara. Fiți bineveniți cu toții. Acest live nu este așa cum am gândit la prima vedere, în mod direct despre România, sau așa cum v-ați aștepta, ci este vorba despre România, despre spațiul românesc și holog în scena românească, așa cum sunt ele percepute și văzute prin ochii și prin paraochii călătorului străin. Și nu orice fel de călător străin, ci un călător parapsihic, un proiector lucid, un cercetător dedicat al conștiinței din perspectiva paradigmei conștiențiale. Și dacă mi este permis, aș îndrăzni să spun că acest călător este un vechi prieten al României și al nostru. Așadar, mulțumesc, Virginia, pentru că ești o susținătoare a României. Thank you very much, Virginia, for being a supporter of Romania. And our old friend, vechiul nostru prieten, Kim McCaul. Suntem foarte fericiți, Kim, să te avem acum aici cu noi. We are very happy to have you here. Thank you. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Adina. I think we understand all the things he said right now. But thank you to introduce in Romanian. I think it's so interesting, right? And very important. Let's introduce Kim McCaul and talk a little more about his curriculum, his mini bio for those who didn't know him. Kim McCaul is an anthropologist and consulting linguist with more than 20 years of applied work with Aboriginal people in Australia. He has been involved with conscientiology since 1997 and has been a volunteer in several conscientiatic institutions since then. He's an instructor. He gave some classes, courses, workshops in conscientiology in Brazil, in England, Germany, Rome, Australia, and of course in Romania. He's going to explain today. And he's the author of the book Multidimensional Evolution, Personal Explorations of Consciousness. Okay, so welcome again, Kim.
Thank you, Virginia. And thank you, Adina. Adina, were you going to say anything else, or you've said everything at your end?
Sure.
Okay. Welcome everybody, and I will work out how I can share the. Maybe Virginia, you can help with the slideshow.
Yes, of course. I was. We can start saying hello to everyone until before we share the screen. We have Regina, Nian, Liliana, Alina, Michiko, Luminita. Please correct me, Fethi, Daniela. Okay, welcome everyone to the Bridge Cultures, and let's share the screen.
And I think it's good to start with the usual important disclaimer in conscientiology that we always like to start with, which is don't believe in anything. It's the principle of disbelief, right? Have your own experiences. This is, of course, is in some ways a talk. I will be talking about a trip that I took, physical trip, traveling from one place to Romania. But it is also obviously under the conscientiological sort of approach, the consciential paradigm. What's of interest of this trip is different experiences of consciousness and energies and those kinds of things, as well as other observations. So that's where the disbelief principle, of course, is really important. I guess I would like to start with saying that I was introduced as an anthropologist, which is true. That is my profession. That's been something I've been engaged in for a long time. But I didn't travel to Romania as an anthropologist, and I have no expertise in Romanian culture. So I'll be sharing, it's very much personal experiences, especially on the first trip I visited. I went completely blind, completely ignorant. And that's the perspective from which I approached the country and so on, right? So I know that obviously Adina is here, and I know there is a number of friends from Romania who are attending right now. And I really look forward to some of your comments and so on, input. But also, please be, I guess, generous if I misrepresent anything about Romania from your perspective, because I was there as a passing tourist. But also, nonetheless, it was very important. It was very important, two very important trips for me, and I do feel quite a strong link to the country. So that should come clear as we talk. Let me just go. Yeah. So, just by way of background, in case anybody's here who's not entirely clear, can people see the arrow? If I'm moving the arrow, is that visible on the screen for everybody, or is that just internally?
No, everyone can see.
Okay, good. So obviously we have Romania here in sort of southeast Europe. I just picked a map, one of the first maps that I found, which is showing the European Union member states. I'll be talking about two trips to Romania. The first was in January of 1996, at which point Romania was not a member of the EU, and then the next one, which was in 2019, when it was. And so it's actually quite significant, I think, in some ways, to the difference of the two experiences. And also, just by way of context, so in the first trip that I took, I was living in Canterbury, which is just south of London. I was at university there. I was in my just started my second year of anthropology studies at Canterbury, and it was during the Christmas break, the winter break, and I'd gone to Germany, where my family is, for Christmas and New Year. Actually, no, for Christmas. And then for New Year, I went to Prague. And in Prague, there arose, I met a friend, and there was sort of the spontaneous idea, let's go to Romania. And so we caught a train through Slovakia to Budapest, and then to this place here, Cluj-Napoca, in the northwest of Romania. I'll talk a little bit about that trip, like the detail it's on in a minute, but this is just by way of geographic context, right? So the first was from there, and then the second visit to Romania, which was in 2019, I started in Australia. I stopped in Dubai, and eventually I flew across here, the Black Sea. Now this area is very much impacted by what's happening in Ukraine. That wasn't on the interphysical cards, I guess, at least not for most of us. Some people probably knew it was going to happen, but anyway. And I flew across there and then landed in Bucharest, where I spent that trip in 2019. So in the southern part of Romania. So the talk's kind of got two parts. I'll first talk about the 1996 trip and then the 2019 trip.
Before start talking about the first trip, may I ask you something? You said before that you didn't have any information about Romania, but still, could you tell us something about your first memories about Romania? When did you hear about Romania for the first time? Maybe in your childhood? I don't know. We were living by that moment in two different blocks, and probably the communication and the information from one part to another was very difficult to be done. When did you hear for the first time about Romania?
Well, certainly in my childhood, and I was always quite fascinated as a kid. I liked geography, so I loved looking at maps. I also was really interested in history as a young kid. Once it became mandatory in school, I lost interest for a while, but off my own bat when I was younger, I was really interested. And I was interested in the Second World War in particular. So I remember watching in Germany, growing up in Germany, they would show a lot of old documentary, like Second World War footage. There's a big push in Germany for people to remember the war, right? To remember what we did there. And so I'm pretty sure there was bits of Romania and generally Eastern European countries that came up in that footage. But I also, as a kid, had I was always, for some reason, like, I don't know if that's what's like for other people, but I was always drawn to certain countries more than others, right? Some countries I felt, like in sport, for example, I would feel naturally a barrack for a certain team and naturally not like another team for no seemingly logical reason. And Romania was a country that I in particular remember a young gymnast, a Romanian gymnast. She was probably 14 or something when I was like 10. I'm not exactly sure. It was quite, who I was really fascinated with watching the Olympics, and also handball. I used to play handball in Germany, and I would always cheer for Romania for some reason. I don't know. So that's kind of the, that's really the extent of it, right? There's nothing more to it. But, and I was trying to remember, why did I go on this first trip in 1996? And so in preparing for this talk, I went through a lot of my old notebooks, and it really brought home for me, for anybody, I guess a lot of people here obviously are conscientiology researchers, the importance of writing down things in our life, right? Writing down our night experiences, our dreams, our parapsychic phenomena, but also kind of our states of mind and things we're struggling with and so on, kind of keeping a bit of a tally. And so one of the notes that I found was, in fact, as I was in Romania, I was questioning, why did I even go on this trip? And I had, because the plan for the winter had been to go to Prague and spend New Year's Eve in Prague, and my cousin was going to, two of my cousins were going to meet me there, and we were going to spend some time in Prague. And then when I was in Prague, I met an American friend who I'd met just a few months before, and someone had just told her she should go to Romania. And we were just like, oh yeah, let's go. And so we just went. It was a spontaneous decision. But then afterwards, I remembered that a few months before that, I had chatted with a friend, and I told him how I really love to go hiking in Transylvania. Just like that. It was just a comment that I'd made for no apparent reason. Which I guess, if you're right, we know about synchronicities, and we know about sort of, I guess, aspects of us knowing aspects about our existential program, knowing about our sort of plans. And sometimes we're not fully conscious of that, and we give ourselves little tips. Like, I had a similar experience before I migrated to Australia. Somebody asked me, what are you going to do when you go to Australia? And I said, oh, I think I'll work with Aboriginal people. And then afterwards I was like, why did I say that? I had no plans, right? I didn't know that that's like in my conscious mind. So to me, this kind of idea about going to Transylvania was kind of a similar experience.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So this next slide here is to give a bit of the Holothosine, right? Two different kinds. My personal Holothosine on the right, and then the Holothosine of the time. So I'll start with the I'll start with my personal Holothosine, right? So this is kind of around, that picture's from around about that time, and I don't know if you can tell, but I'm in a bit of a Jesus phase. So I had 6 months before this trip to Romania, I had actually essentially started my multidimensional journey, if you want, right? I'd gone to a meditation center in Indonesia, and my life had completely transformed, because I went from someone who had no conscious awareness of multidimensionality to suddenly having a lot of perceptions of energies, of consciexes, extra physical consciousnesses, and people's sort of emotional energy, right? I did not know conscientiology. I did not know terms like Holothosine, right? This bundle of thought, emotion, and energy, or intrusion, or even bioenergy. I guess I'd done some Qigong and so on, so I had a bit of an understanding of that, but not in the way that we understand it through conscientiology. And I was actually in a bit of a what you might call a state of spiritual emergency or spiritual crisis. So essentially, where sort of captures the idea that sometimes when we get confronted with the reality of non-physical life, that our whole worldview is so shaken up that we become a bit adrift, right? The influx of energy can bring up a whole lot of, it's like experiencing your existential basement, right? All your intense emotions and unresolved kind of mental and emotional material, it all becomes more accentuated. And so I was oscillating during this period quite a lot between, on the one hand, having quite intense multidimensional experiences, projections, mental somatic kind of experiences, and feeling really, really sort of expansive, and at the same time being really ungrounded and really struggling with being a human being and just doing basic things like having a normal conversation could throw me, because I would be overwhelmed by energetic perceptions and insecurities and all kinds of things. So that's kind of the state that I was in, and I so the friend that I very coincidentally, in a way, or synchronicitously, as you want to say, met in Prague was someone I just met in Indonesia in this ashram. So we shared this interest, although I don't think she had quite the same. It had quite the same impact on her as it had on me. So that was me, and I put the visa in here because it kind of represents the state of the world as it was still in 1996. So the end of the Cold War really officially, I suppose, was the end of 1989, so 7 years before this happened. Which is not really a long time for really strong totalitarian systems, right, that were held in place by authority and by power and so on to really change. So that whole journey, like Prague, we went to the embassy there. Prague was to get the visa for Romania. That seemed to represent quite it was very open. It had become very quickly a very open place. I think partly because Czechoslovakia, or then Czechia, had already been one of the more open, together with Hungary, sort of the more open Eastern Bloc nations. It's very closely enmeshed with Germany. There's very close, many cultural links and so on. So New Year's Eve in Prague, which is where I was, full of Germans. But then as we went to Romania, it became increasingly clear that there was still a lot of old patterns that were present. So we caught the train. One of the things that was was reflecting on that today, striking, you couldn't actually get a ticket from Prague to Cluj-Napoca in one way through. They said, no, we just sell to you to Budapest. You go to Budapest and you get it there. Because the systems weren't interlinked yet, right? Everything was kind of separate from each other. Then we went on the train between Czechia and Slovakia. So they had separated only 4 years before this, in 1992. Czechoslovakia had become 2 countries. At the border guards came through and they took everybody's passport and disappeared somewhere into the night, right? And there was in the carriage next to us, there was an American tourist there, and she refused, for whatever reason, to give them their passport. Classic statements like, I'm an American citizen, you can't do this. And so she was taken off the train. And then the train went on. So these are things that you just don't see anymore in Europe, right? Like you can just go through now. It's completely open. We got to Budapest and wanted to get the ticket to Cluj-Napoca. And we were told, nah, don't get a ticket all the way through. We'll just give you the ticket to the border. And then you just bribe the ticket inspectors and don't worry about getting a ticket. So that was the official advice of Hungarian rail instructions, officials. And that's exactly what we did. So when we got to the Romanian border, we had more of this old system, right? Border guards coming through, looking under seats, inspecting everybody's passport really carefully. And then eventually a friendly ticket inspector came and we gave him some cash and that was it. But one thing that became also apparent on this trip already is the difficult relationship between Hungary and Romania, with people in Hungary on the train sort of telling us, why do you want to go to Romania? It's a horrible place, don't go there. And then later we discovered in Romania sort of the mirror of that.
An historical trauma, I'm afraid.
Yes, I understand. There are many of those in Europe, right? These border regions where people are not so happy with where they are on the border and so on. Yeah, so we arrived in Cluj, and based on my notes, we did not trust the taxi drivers. They looked untrustworthy to us. It was probably, now the interesting thing is my memory is it being dark all the time, but it can't have been dark all the time. And in fact, I know, again from my notes, it was sunny days, but it's sort of an image that I have when I think about that particular trip, which may reflect also my own state of mind in a sense, or the intensity of a lot of the things that that happened. So we didn't trust the cab drivers. We got on a bus, and we didn't know how to buy tickets on the bus. And then these three guys kind of crowded us and said, "Where are your tickets?" And we were like, "Oh, we don't have tickets." So they said, "Well, you got to get off." And so they took us off the bus and stood around us and kind of in a menacing way and wanted our passports. And I gave them my passport, at which point they wanted money to give us the passport back. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but I gave them some money. So that was our introduction. That was our introduction to Romania. And I think there's actually, again, it's been really good to reflect on this trip and reflect on it in comparison to the next trip and how different they are. And I think there are, in terms of sort of ego karmic and perhaps group karmic patterns, there might be some reasons for that it's good for me to probably explore further. But it wasn't a very nice welcome, right? And then we found a hotel and discovered that they were charging different prices for foreigners. So foreigners would charge $100 US. The local price probably would have been $20 or something. And $100 US was a lot of money for me at the time as a student, for both of us. And so we were feeling quite stressed already. We'd had this opening experience, and now we had this, and we weren't going to be able to spend a week there spending that money on a hotel. And so the next day we were walking around Cluj trying to find a solution, and we went to some sort of place that advertised itself as a tourist office. The woman there couldn't speak any English, which seemed odd for a tourist office. But then she brought a guy from a neighboring office over who spoke fluent English, and he translated for us, and she couldn't help us. And then he took us across to his office. I can't remember what he did, but his name was Ovidio. I remember that part. I don't remember his, I wrote that down. I wouldn't have remembered otherwise. But I can't remember his surname. But he had behind his desk, he had a sign saying Lions Club, which is an international charitable organization. I'm not quite sure if they're church-based. I think they probably are. But my travel companion, her father or so on, was really involved in the Lions Club in America. And so she started talking about that. They started talking about Lions Club. And then my notes describe it as if it says that he was looking at us like he was kind of trying to weigh up an investment opportunity. And then he said, "We'll look after you." And he offered us, took us home for lunch, and then he organized us a room for while we were there. So yeah, we got to meet his wife and child, who was probably about 8 at the time, and spoke French. So this 8-year-old French-speaking kid, so that was one of the surprises, right? That I experienced there is the degree of multilingualism and sort of culturedness, I guess, that I now know is a big part of Romanian culture, but I wasn't expecting. I didn't know. So this is actually quite a good scene. This is pretty much what it was like at the time. Everything was white, snowed, cold. This picture, Adina found this photo. It really reminded me. We went for a walk with the son for video to the Botanic Gardens in Cluj, the walk would look roughly like this, right? And and then I thought I would comment on the first kind of. So there's a couple of parapsychic experience I wanted to touch on, and the first one relates to, not sure if it was this church, but a church. But I don't know, Adina, if there's anything you wanted to ask or interject at this point, or anybody else?
Oh, for the moment, no. Please continue.
Okay.
Go on, please. We want to know more about your experience. What's the name of the church?
Well, what's the name of the church? I don't know. And I don't know if it was this church that I went into. I don't know. You found, is this in Cluj? Do you know?
Yes,
Adina?
in fact, it's the cathedral, Orthodox cathedral from Cluj-Napoca.
Yeah, okay. So very well, it might have been that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you. But let me just find, I thought so I thought I'd read this. It's somewhat what's the word? Exposing, right? So I'm going to expose some vulnerabilities that I experienced at the time, because I experienced a case of intrusion in this church, and those of you who know about the concept of intrusion, right, like the impact of extra physical consciousnesses on us, on our energies, on our thoughts. You know that you will know that intrusion starts with self-intrusion, right? So there is something in us that opens the doors for this, that activates the kind of intrusion. So my notes is this. So we enter an Orthodox church. From the outside, it had seemed light and spacious, but inside it seemed to be cut short, the church itself, right? It felt much smaller and confined. I was surprised by the disparity between the outside and the inside, and at first I just stand and take in the smallness of the place. The central point is an open book. I assume it's a Bible. And people come one after the other to kiss it. Some kiss it once, others repeatedly, with an air of prostration. Like they're kind of putting themselves really down, bowing down before this book. And I wonder about this subservient demeanor. The head wall of the church is covered in icons. There's a vast array of holy beings with halos. My thocenity, so my thoughts and emotions, my inner energy, starts getting agitated. Outside the church, there had been a beggar, and I had not given him any money. I start feeling guilty about this, and I try to calm my increasing guilt by assuring myself that I will do so on the way out. My travel companion comes past me, and she says something to me and moves on. And then I start feeling guilty because I didn't respond to her. So I've got this guilt, this worry, and this anxiety that starts running and escalating and growing. Then I see that my travel companion is talking with an old woman, and then I start having thoughts like, oh, people speak to her, but I'm just too unapproachable. I'll just have to work things out alone. That's how I am anyway. So I'm having these sort of negative self thoughts. And I start moving around distractedly, not really knowing what to do with myself. And then I sort of unthinkingly decide to kneel in front of the head wall, like many others. So the wall with all the icons on it. And there, face to face with the icons, they seem like the most beautiful beings, radiant and powerful, and I seem so small. For a brief moment, my thoughts aspire to become like them, to become like one of those holy beings. And I quickly realized the presumptuousness of the idea. How could I even think of being that holy? I get up and walk out quickly, and as soon as I step out, the sun is there, and immediately my mind becomes calm, and I realize the tension that had been trying to explode my mind. So there was this huge emotional build-up that had happened in the church, and as soon as I walked out, it just fell away from me. like I said before, I gave a bit of an indication of where I was at that time in my life, and so I was very open to these kinds of anxious, negative self talks that were triggered. And I don't know to what extent they were triggered by extraphysical consciousnesses. I think there was extraphysical consciousnesses around, but also it seemed to be the Holothosine of the church. Seemed to be this: I'm nothing. I'm guilty. I'm low. This kind of prostration, kind of energy, right? And looking up at these incredible holy beings, whatever they were.
Yeah, it seems that you connected with this religious Holothosine, right?
Yes.
That is, you comment the guilty, you feeling guilty,
yes,
and there's some
exactly.
like weakest traits, right, that connect with this Holothosine. And can you do like a comparison or a comparative about the religious Holothosine and the consciential paradigm? What is the difference between that, and why do you think, how can you overcome the intrusion in that moment, self-intrusion and hetero-intrusion?
Yeah.
In that situations when you are visiting a cathedral, because you're not going to, when you go in a travel, right, or in a journey, you're going to visit different places, right, and cathedrals and churches. And how is the best posture
Right.
that you can have in situations?
Yeah, of course. No, look, I mean, at that stage, overcoming, so the openness to intrusion, like I said at the beginning, starts with ourselves, right? And overcoming patterns of guilt and shame from past lives of religious practice has been a big part of my existential program, really, in this lifetime. Like, it's been a big part of my own recycling, I suppose, in this life, like renewing and healing and so on. And so at that stage, I was unaware of this. I wasn't even conscious that I had those habits in me. So it was all a mess. Like, there was an unawareness. So awareness is the first piece, right? Is to do self-research, to understand our own history, and to be honest with ourselves about the emotional baggage that we carry, not just from this life, but from the past as well. In conscientiology, if you ask about the difference between the church and the consciential paradigm, we don't prostrate in front of holy figures with halos, right? We focus on trying to be the best who we are, so we can work shoulder to shoulder with the helpers, so we can step into our own evolutionary power. So it's a much more independent, self-actualized approach to evolution.
What is a helper? For those who don't know, I don't know if everyone understands what is a helper, because you were talking about we don't have gurus or something that we are shoulder by shoulder. There's no anyone that is. There's different levels of evolution, right? But there's no this.
Well, there is. So your question about a helper, when I refer to a helper, it's a non-physical consciousness who, by the nature of being non-physical, has a greater level of lucidity in many ways than we do, right? Because we're in a physical body, we are limited in our perceptions, we're limited in the scope of our vision, whereas the helpers can see the bigger picture. They can understand the dynamics at much more different level, even if they might be at the same evolutionary level as us, right? Often our helpers are, when we're on the other side, we may well be helpers to other friends of ours who are in a physical body. So that's that thing, right? So the helpers that are essentially on our evolutionary level. And then we do have also the idea of more evolved consciousnesses, there is a hierarchy in conscientiology, but it's not a hierarchy in it's not a hierarchy in one consciousness submitting to another. Like, even if there is a consciousness who's and I don't really want to go into it because it opens up many other questions, right? The various criteria, like the Homo sapiens serenissimus, for example. Even if they're much more evolved, we still work together, not at their feet, as it were.
Perfect. But also we can have like intraphysical helpers, right? It's not only we can have extraphysical helpers, you know, in other dimensions, but here you can find others, right? I don't know if you meet some helpers during your journey to Romania, but there's some people that has this pattern, right, of help others that are so benevolent or positive people, right, in the intraphysical, in this dimension too.
Yeah, I mean, that's not normally the way we use. Not when I talk about helper right now, I'm talking about the helpers extraphysical. But of course, we can have. I think when we're working as a group, for example, when we're doing activities like this, we're always helpers to each other, right? If it's healthy, if there's a healthy group activity, we're all supporting each other in different ways and practical ways, through good energies, through all right, so that was the church experience. Now, this Ovidio fellow, for example, in Romania, he was kind of a helper. I mean, he made our trip really great when it started off not so great, right? So after being kind of held up and so on, we had someone who then, after putting us up in Cluj, he took us out to the countryside, and it did look like this pretty much. There's one picture that I have in my mind that I didn't have a camera on that trip, and way before digital cameras, but it just cracked me up and it stuck in my mind. There was someone had a washing line out. The weather was like this, and there was all these clothes frozen on the washing line, which I thought was quite funny. So, and he took us into a forest area up in the mountains I cannot remember the name of a place. It was just a really small, like there was like 3 houses or something, and there was an army barracks around there, which I know because we went and looked for some food one evening, and we got some food there in the army barracks. And there I got another flavor of the Romanian Hungarian sort of issue, because the soldier who talked to us was a Hungarian Romanian, so he was a Romanian but of Hungarian background, and he was telling us how he got bullied and ostracized by his comrades, I guess, because of his background. And in that whole area, I believe Hungarians were not very well regarded. So I spent a few days, I don't know, it was probably 2 or 3 days there, and it looked pretty much like this. I remember walking through snow like that, through pine trees, quite a bit. And so here I wanted to share the other experience that I found very striking, and that I don't think I put the church one in my book, but this one I did put in my book. And so I didn't know what Panther was at the time, or even what multidimensional assistance was, really, right? I had no concept of it. I hadn't heard about it. But I did every day do a particular meditation that I'd learned in Indonesia about 6 months ago. And every time I did that, I got a whole lot of energy phenomena happening, pulsating, vibrating, sort of the sense of parts of my body disappearing, like I couldn't feel like my arms or my legs, or tingling, expansion, all kinds of altered states of consciousness. And I would sometimes have these experiences or these feelings that I didn't have a reference point for them, but it kind of felt like I was someone else. I was feeling someone else's energy or something. That had happened a few times, right? But it was a particularly striking event happened here in the mountains, and so I was basically overcome. And I don't know. So people who do Panther. So Panther is short for the personal energetic task, which is a daily practice of exteriorizing energy to assist other people. There's a description here.
Yeah.
And one of the phenomena that can happen in Panther, so one of the things that we do sometimes with Panther is that we assist consciousnesses who haven't gone through the second dysoma, so they haven't lost their energy body they've died, their physical body has died, but they're still carrying their energy body. And that is a problem when you're dead, because it keeps you really dense. So ideally when you die, you want to clear that energy body. And if people are attached, so one of the reasons it doesn't happen is people are really attached or confused, or just they don't really realize they've died, or they don't want to have died. And so the energy of the Panther practitioner can be used in those instances to assist, again, the helpers, extra-physical helpers, to kind of strip the person off their energy so they can move on. And I actually don't know, I've not really spoken to people about it, what it's like for other people, but sometimes for me, when that happens, it's like I feel a lot of the feelings and so on of that person. And so in this case, and this was the first one, one of the clearest examples I have had of this, I was perceiving this energy of this, and it was a very kind of dense and sickly kind of energy. And I got this information, or these understandings of a person who had been beaten to death by a group of men because he had, or they believed he had raped a girl, and this was the person that whose energies I was feeling, and I got these words in my head, "Baci eu," and I don't speak Romanian. I still don't, but I didn't speak any then. I've learned a little bit since then, and so I didn't know what it was, but I wrote it down, and I subsequently, when we left the mountains and got back to Ovidio's house, I looked in a dictionary, and I discovered that it means shepherd eye, or shepherd eye, baci eu. And since then, I was actually told that baci is even it's a dialect for shepherd. It's not like the normal word for shepherd, apparently. It's like a regional dialect. So that was really striking for me in a phase when I was still really unsure I was constantly questioning my own parapsychic phenomena because it was so new to me. So to have something that meant something, to have this information that I was kind of veridical to a point, right? Like something that's evidential, was very significant. And it also really helped me to understand that I was doing something with the energies. It wasn't just all imagination. Yeah.
If you don't mind, what I want to add here is that you managed to access in that moment the very core of the Romanian culture, of the Romanian Holothosine, which is ballet, Miorița. And well, it is a story. It's a symbol. It's a metaphor about Romanian people. Well, it's not now the moment to talk about Miorița. It's a cosmogony, but yes, this is what I wanted to highlight: the idea that you managed to go deep into the Romanian Holothosine, and this is a great thing.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. That it has that other significance as well. To from a Romanian perspective, for me, it was like it was a significant parapsychic experience. It was very important to me. But then to learn that it has some other potential like cultural meaning for someone from the country is quite significant. And I just want to share this last experience. Just I wouldn't have shared it, but then yesterday we had another talk in the Invisible College of Serenology, and Jeff, so the person speaking there, he mentioned something about King Arthur and Merlin, and that made my ears prick up because I don't normally think about King Arthur and Merlin and those people, but in preparing for this talk, I found while I was in the mountains there in Transylvania, I had this very short note from a dream. King Arthur is calling upon Lancelot, Ivanhoe, and Tristan, who are gathered around a dragon. I wake up with a big smile in the middle of the Carpathians. Right, so that was in my dream there was King Arthur, Ivanhoe, Tristan, and there was a dragon, and they were there, and something about this, the energies of that made me right. It was one of those. I'm guessing some of you have had those experiences where you come back from a lucid dream, a projection, or whatever it was. Like I'm not sure what this was, but you come back with this euphoria. It was one of those experiences. And I have no idea if there's a connection between those characters from English folklore and Romania. Someone suggested to me maybe the dragon. There's a significance in the dragon and Vlad Tepes Dragul, no, because he was Order of the Dragon. I don't know, but it was I found it curious that it got mentioned yesterday, and so I thought I'd bring it up today in case someone else here has got some connection to King Arthur and those guys and wants to let me know. That would be good to know.
Yeah, someone has something to say about the dragon. We have here a comment. Ceci said that the forest is known as a place where paranormal phenomena take place, right? What do you think about it?
Is this a forest around Cluj-Napoca?
Yes, it is.
Oh, about you, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
I wish I knew.
There's I think Lily was asking, what does the concept mean when, I think Adina told before, I think it's okay now. Okay, yes.
Okay, thanks, Ceci. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, well, this was trip number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to just go on. Shall I? Or
Yeah. Go on,
okay.
please. We have like 15 minutes. We have 40 minutes.
40 minutes. Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
right.
to finish.
So that, as far as I was concerned, I can't say that I thought much more. I thought about that trip from time to time, but I did not really envisage myself having any more connection with Romania. It wasn't on my radar really, until I think it was about 2018. I got an email out of the blue from someone in Romania saying, "Hi, I've read your book and we would like to translate it into Romanian. Is that okay?" And obviously the answer to that was yes, of course, that's great. Go for it. And so that's how this came about, and that's how a connection came about with Romania again. And so the person who first initiated the contact was a woman called Nicoleta Uega. I can't quite remember, Adina, you might know better. You were involved fairly quickly, I think, right? And
yes, in fact, I was at that moment, I was reading Sandy Gusta's book, Less Incomplete, and after I finished her book, Kindle recommended me, not out of the blue, but recommended me your book. And well, I think it was in 2019, not in 2018, but well, somewhere there. And I started reading your book, and I was very excited. And well, it was the first book that well, I felt that the personal experience were very impactful. Your personal experience were very impactful for me at that moment. And well, I used to be then a member of a group, of a spiritual group, and I asked with the lady who was the leader of our group, Elena Kocic, and she she started the entire process to contact you and to facilitate your book to be translated and to appear in Romania at For You. And that's the story. I translated a part of it, not the entire, but I began starting your book, and then I think that Nicoleta continued, but I cannot tell you for sure. But that was the story. Yeah.
Well, it was a great surprise, and what it's great doing this presentation. Actually, I found it really helpful to think back in time and see patterns, right, that I hadn't seen before. So I think that's a really useful exercise. One of the things I thought as I was going through this, really valuable, right, for us to do these reviews of our past, because one thing I noticed now is that both these trips to Romania happened around big turning points in my life. So the first trip happened after I'd just been to Indonesia, and I was just discovering multidimensionality and this whole change in my perspective of life and purpose in life. And this second contact happened shortly after I ended my marriage, and there's like a whole new stage in my life with a kind of new and refreshed focus on this kind of assistential work and the beginning of what feels like the beginning of a new stage in life. So it's very good. Like, if this had happened, it couldn't have happened earlier. I wouldn't have been available, for example, to come and do the thing 2 years earlier or so on. So it was perfect timing for when you did contact me. And I was going to, and I don't know exactly again how it unfolded, but I was coming to Europe. I was going to visit my family in Germany, and somehow in our conversation it arose, well, I could come to Romania and do some kind of activity around having the book launch, because the book was going to be launched. So I was going to come for the book launch and organize a workshop. So we did a 2-day workshop around that. And I thought this was quite funny in a way. Again, when I put this together in the first slide, if you remember from the first trip, I had the visa. In 1996, I needed a visa. And then in 2019, this was kind of my visa, right? Like, this was my multidimensional visa, the purpose for coming to Romania. And in the first trip, we came through snowy, dark, border guards, barriers. And then on the second trip, I was flying in. So this is coming from across the Black Sea here. This is the Black Sea. We're just crossing over Romanian territory here. Now, Adina had all these beautiful photos. But it wasn't this, for example. So I've actually put in a few of mine which aren't as photographically perfect, but they just capture my perspective, right? So it was I felt quite it's good, right, when we're traveling, with our existential program in mind and our evolution in mind, it's really good to pay attention to how we respond to different areas, to different countries, to different environments. And I still remember this feeling of expansion and kind of excitement, or kind of that whole trip was very kind of in the halo of assistance, right? Because it was all around the focus. So there was a very mental somatic energy about everything. So it was kind of an excitement, but a very like openness, expansion, but all very calm, right? But it felt very good to come into Romania, to fly in like this.
Kim, were you alone when you visit the second time? You were alone?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So sometimes when you travel alone, you have more, space. Sometimes, you connect better.
That is true. Yeah. Yeah. You can be more connected with your own perceptions. Yeah. So again, Adina had a really nice photo of this Arc de Triomphe. I'm not sure what do you call it in Romanian.
Arcul de Triunf.
Arcul de Triomphe. Okay. So this Arc de Triomphe in Bucharest. But this actually, for me, this kind of captures my impressions of Bucharest, right? So Adina hosted me and took me around to. Here we're on the way to a open air museum, and also the book launch. But this kind of traffic condition, right? Like the picture that you have is just the Arc de Triomphe, all empty and nice with a big flag. This is how I remember it, right? Traffic everywhere, lots of sort of time in the traffic jams, this was. So I was now getting a bit of a delayed insight into Romanian culture and the diversity of Romanian culture, which I didn't know about. So this is an open air museum in Bucharest, which I would highly recommend if you're ever there. I just really like these houses. I actually thought that they might be something for Australia because they are set in the ground for insulation, right? To be able to deal with mainly the heat, mainly the cold, I guess. I cannot remember which part of Romania they're from. You probably know, Adina. There was a particular region that they're from. But so here in Australia, we've got up in the desert, you've got people living in caves and sort of inbuilt dugouts. But this would actually be quite handy even where I live at times. But so there was a big diversity. That's what I learned about Romania, right? And really strong culture. Culture is still really strong in different regional areas. I'm pretty sure this is the park near your house, isn't it, Adina?
Yes. This is Mogoșoaia Palace. But may I ask you something, please? So when you came in Romania for the second time, you were an anthropologist and conscientiologist, right? With full. But as an anthropologist, you studied Mircea Eliade, I'm sure. How Mircea Eliade contributed to your image about Romania? Have you been influenced when you visited Romania? Have you been influenced by your old studies or books that you read written by Mircea Eliade?
Well, for anybody here who doesn't know, Mircea Eliade is a very famous in the realm of anthropology, I guess folklore kind of studies.
Historian of religion.
Yeah, historian of religion. I have to say, Adina, the only work of his that I read was his book on shamanism. So I read nothing by him about Romania or about Romanian culture. I've never read any ethnography, sociology, linguistics, anything in my fields of study on Romania before these visits. So, and I not even sure, I can't remember when I realized that Iliada was Romanian. Because he did most of his writing in the US, right? Later, he emigrated to the US, I think.
Yes. He was a professor at Chicago University.
Chicago, yeah. Yes. So.
And yes, and here, this is the place. This is the place where the course took place.
Yeah, this is the place that you guys organized. So, I guess I had been. So, in terms of the two experiences, and you asking about helpers before, Virginia, you're right, intraphysical helpers. So, obviously, the first trip was a whole different ball game. But so since then, I'd studied conscientiology. I'd lived in Brazil. I'd been involved here in Australia, running activities, and there was me and Ana Paula Lauge and Jeff for a long time, and then Jacqueline as well. They were sort of organizing activities here in Australia, and it's a very small team. You did everything, right? You had to do the marketing, and you had to organize the venue, and you had to deal with potential students and so on. So my experience of teaching conscientiology was one of a lot of work, and a lot of also because I was alone in Adelaide. So Jeff and Anna were in Sydney, doing a lot of it by myself, which kind of takes us back to my intrusion in the church, right? About being alone and stuff when I was in Cluj. Now coming to Bucharest, everything was organized by this amazing team of a very enthusiastic Romanian team of people who are really keen to understand and study conscientiology, and really had a lot of understanding of multidimensionality and everything. So, like book launch was organized, everything was. I just arrived and I was taken to places, and here's the thing, and here's the activity. So I just had to organize the activities, right? The events and structure it and so on. So in preparing this talk, I really I thought of Romania as like the gift that keeps on giving. It's been giving me a lot, I feel. My first trip was incredibly rich. My second trip was really valuable and a very important time in my life. And now talking about it now and reflecting on it, it's enriching me again, right? It's helping me deepening my studies and so on. So there is some really important connection, and I feel a lot of appreciation for Romania.
For sure, you have a positive karma. We call it holo karma of Romania. It seems that it's so positive because people contact you to translate the book, so you receive a lot of gifts, as you say, right?
Yeah,
free
absolutely. Gifts. Yeah. And so there's just a couple of photos of the event, and I actually, I don't know if you can see that here. There are some books there that I think that might be a Jesus or something there on the cover. So one of the things that I found is that it's very eclectic, right? People were very eclectic in Romania, like around the workshop. Clearly, everybody there, or people that I spoke to that I had any impressions of, had engaged with multidimensionality in different ways through different paradigms for quite a long time. There was a lot of parapsychic awareness in the room. People were reporting all kinds of perceptions and projections and so on during the practical sessions. And personally, I appreciated the eclecticness. I've always valued eclectic backgrounds, right, and sort of drawing on different things. And so I thought that made things really, really valuable to. And then there was this openness and this willingness to really want to engage with conscientiology on its terms, right? And what is that about, and how does that work, and how do those tools work? So yeah, it was a very rich and rewarding second visit. So I think that's pretty much all I have to say. I'm happy to answer any questions or.
Okay, thank you. Can we go back here, or can we do like a small dissemination now? Can we open a dissemination?
What do you mean by that?
About this, about
Yes.
the next event that we are going to have this year in October, from 6 to 10 of October. We are organizing, ISIC is organizing this event in Romania, in Bucharest. We will have dynamic, parapsychic dynamics, energetic field, and the teen, ISIC teen, and these instructors that you can see in the slide, Rui Bueno and Cayo Policel, they will be there. They have more experience with energy, so they will develop some exercises, energetic exercises. So we are here today, Adina, me, Kim, to invite you all to this activity, especially to all the Romanian people that are here today with us. And Adina, I will ask you to say more information. Yes.
If you don't mind, I would like so our course, our activity will take place in a hotel in Bucharest, and we will give you further information on Isaac's site, and sure, we will keep in touch with everybody. And if I'm allowed, I would like to invite also people in Romanian to participate. Vă așteptăm pe toți să participați la acest eveniment care va avea loc în octombrie în București. Și în primul rând pentru că va fi un eveniment în premieră. Vom avea pe lângă dinamica parapsihică, vom avea și lansarea de carte, evident, cartea pe care acum o pregătim. Vom avea și un curs de câmp bioenergetic, ceva ce nu s-a mai ținut și nu s-a mai întâmplat în România. Așadar, vă aștept pe toți și vă vom oferi informații atât pe site-ul ISIC, cât, desigur, puteți primi informații și de la mine. Vă mulțumesc și vă așteptăm. Thank you. Great. Okay.
Thank you so much, Adina. I put here the information of our website, our email that you can contact us if you are interested. We have any other comments, or we have?
I saw one question there.
For yes.
So I saw here Vali was asking if there's any special places in Bucharest that
yes.
that moved me. So I have to say the trip to Bucharest was very task-focused. It was quite different from the first trip, which was kind of going with the flow and just things happening and so on. The trip to Bucharest was very task-focused. I didn't do really any sightseeing other than the museum that we went to. I think apart from that, I was basically between Adina's place where I stayed and the venue. But this park here, that's pretty much the main thing that I really remember seeing, going there a couple of times, doing some nice bioenergy work there, and really appreciating that space. I do remember I went to the book launch in the evening, and it was in the old city, I think, right in the old town.
It was in the very center of Bucharest.
Yes, and I I appreciated the vibe, but I would have liked to have spent more time, experiencing that and feeling into that.
Perfect. Thanks.
But as Mihaela points out, it's been a long time. Even though that trip feels quite recent, that's it's 4 years now, 2019. Yes, I'm sure things have changed again since then. So it's time for another visit.
Come with us, Keen.
Yeah.
Because look, Keen is in Australia, I am in Foz, Adina in Romania. So it's not so easy, but we will be there. Marcos Massini has a comment. Well done, Romania definitely seems a fascinating place. So I imagine he's from Brazil, maybe, we don't know. But thanks for your comments, Marco. We have another question about Michaela. Since the last visit here in Romania, did you have other lucid projections in our country?
I can't recall having a lucid projection in Romania. Since then, not that I can recall.
Okay, thanks.
But if not then, later, have you had any retrocognitive experiences, or do you have any, research hypothesis about some, say, axiological connection with Romania or with this geographic?
Well, I mean, that's a good look. Understanding what I understand now, I know that there has to be a connection, right? It feels like a very strong connection of some sort, and I know these don't come from nothing. So there must be a past connection. I hadn't thought of any. You, in fact, Adina gave me a lead, right? You recommended I think you had a projection, or you had some process where this was suggested to you to recommend this person to me. So this is a Romanian historic. How would you describe him? He was like many of those historic figures. He did lots of different things, right? He was a diplomat, and he was a politician, and he was like an early ethnographer. He wrote some. He was a mediator. So it was a very interesting. I can see a lot of parallels in his life that resonate, but I haven't spent time further to dig into that, or beyond sort of reading some basic biographic factors and making a note in my list of notes of things to pursue. He's among them.
I have a hypothesis for you to think that maybe your past life there is related to religion because of the experience you talk, you share with us, and because of the the passport that you saw us. So I think it was so interesting, right? This connection with religion, and Romania has this past, right, about religion, and now it's so religious, right? So just to think about it, right? It's not easy to access to other lives, right? But sometimes help us to remember and recycle and not repeating the same mistakes in the past. But one concept that I think it worth to share with all is that when you go to another country, you for the ones that will go to Romania, you connect with the Holothosine of the country. Okay, so if in your past life you were there, it's like you reconnect with your past, with your past lives, and your holothosine, your retro holothosines appear. It's like it's something that you connect. It's like in the radio, you know. You start connecting with your thosins in your past lives in this territory. You know, it's like your energy interact with the country, and you have your retro form, we call, okay. And this is so interesting because you can feel very well in one country or not. You can feel that you are at home, as Kim said. In the second time, I was feel very mental somatic. He launched a book, so it was mental somatic, of course. So he has this input with the translation, and then he for sure did a lot of assistance with this book. So I think this is so important when you go to another country to be aware of the holothosine, how you are feeling, how are your thosines, are positive or not, and to be self-defense, you know, work with energy. So this is gonna help you to be to manifest in a positive way, right? So this is so important for the travelers.
Yeah, definitely to combine external travel with inner travel, right? To make it not just about the places you see and ticking off the sites or whatever, but to connect with what is happening inside of you when you are there. And that's what I think makes it really rich, makes travel a really evolutionary activity.
Yeah, and when you go there, you meet with people and not with certain people, you know, like Ovidio. Who is this guy that you met with the sun? It's people that you have some connections. Something is connected, this kind of people, or when you connect with Adina or with others, right? It's because you have like a link, something that connect to these people, because could be a passing common, or maybe it's because the thosins are similar, the thosinity, okay, similar. So this is so interesting, right? When you go to another place, you meet certain people that are the key people that when you visit the people show you things. And so this is what are the relation with these people? Have you ever thought about it? The people that you met, what are the why did you meet these people? What did you learn with this experience?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think with this second trip, I've certainly thought about it. I was much more attuned to the whole like evolutionary sharing that we're doing and the relationships that have formed since my visit and sort of maintained in some ways, right? And yeah, I didn't really think about it with my first trip, and to be honest, until you just mentioned it now, even I hadn't thought back about Ovidio. He was a curious character. Some part of me thought he was some kind of mafiosi or something. People seemed scared of him as we were going around town. Like there was one afternoon where he took me around, and we just walked into restaurants and like shops, and he'd say hello, and then he'd walk out again. And people were kind of seemed uncomfortable to see him. And I was like, what is this guy doing? What is this? Like, what's going on here? So I have no idea. So he was a curious, but he was very hospitable and supportive to us, right? And like I said, I think he was hoping for some trade-off in the long run, maybe some connections in the West, right? Making some relationship with these Westerners. But that's just what happened now, right? So nonetheless, the way we met, there is probably some connection between us. Where I stand, we don't have these kind of significant interactions with people in a vacuum, if there hasn't been already some other relationship in the past life. Because even though it was short, it was quite significant, that interaction.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. We have some comments here about Anna. Thank you so much. It was very interesting. There's like Vali Negurita, looking forward to welcome you. We have like 6 minutes to finish. There's other people that were saying hello. Let's. I think I didn't mention Mona, Lily, Mira, Marinistor, Sorin, Constant Oprea. I think it's from the family of.
Yes, he's my husband.
Hello, Liliana, Manuela is here, Valine Gurita, and Eliani here, and that's it. I will ask you guys to put, because all the names of the name of the museum, please put it. The guy that you mentioned, that is the anthropologist, and the park, the name of the park, because there's some people that would like to know more. There is Daniela. Thank you for you sharing. For me, it is very interesting to hear from a person aware of the experience lived here. Yeah. This is interesting, right? Because when we live in our own country, we don't realize we are used to, right? We are used to the energy we didn't perceive because it's the energy that we are immersed. Thank you, Kim, for this rich information you shared with us. Hope to see you guys in Romania in October. Yeah, Eliana is coming too. We will be there. We are so anxious, excited. We are excited to go there and to know all of you that are here. Yeah, it's gonna be a pleasant to be with you. Any other comments, Kim, Adina, something that you would like to say? There's another comments here before. Yes, we will be together and share our experience in October. Lily is coming too. Nia, was super interesting. Thank you to be here. Michael, I remember now how much your book was appreciated here in Romania. It was important for us at that moment to do some recyclings in our personal history. Yes. Well, so nice, right? Experience of Kim.
Yeah, so I'd just like to say thanks for people tuning in. As I said, it was really valuable sharing these kinds of things, right? It's usually valuable for us doing the sharing. It was involved me digging through old journals, reminding myself of many other things not related to Romania as I was browsing through things. So yeah, really appreciate that. I can't right now see myself making it in October, but I certainly hope to be back another time.
It's going to be the third journey. We will invite you here to share the experience. But
yes,
yeah, and we will.
While we're plugging things, maybe we could start plugging October 2024. We would love to have people in Australia. So Romanian attendees, most welcome. Bring Romania here. If I can't come to you, come here. We're planning an international event in Adelaide, Australia in October 2024. The first Australasian Pacific conference in serenology and para-reurbanization. So this is the first time we're really announcing it right now. But
I put here just Alina saying thank you. Looking forward to see you here again. Thanks, Alina. And now here we have, this is the link for the Australian Pacific event, right? That Kim is sharing with you guys. Here is the more information. This is the first Australian Pacific Conference on Para-Urbanization and Serenology in Adelaide, right, where Kim lives, and Michiko, other volunteers, and Fernandez, from 17 to 20 October. So because we are Isaac, and Isaac is not in everywhere, but it's different places, right? So we are in Brazil. We are here in Brazil as me. In Australia as Kim. There's people in the United States, in Germany. Okay, and this
In
is
Romania.
in Romania. Of course, Romania. We have several volunteers that they are coming, participating in our meetings, and they are helping in the event. And just I will like to say you the last invitation for you guys this year, that is gonna be an international week. Let's see if I can share the screen. Yes, I think I can. Can you hear, guys? Can you see, guys, the international week? Can you see?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Because okay, so we will like to invite to the 4th International Week of Conscientiology from 28th of July to 6th of August. It's gonna be an online event, and the Holothosine is gonna be connecting the dimensions, cultures, and consciousnesses, multidimensional, multicultural interconnection. So it's 10 days of leading edge activities and online courses, entirely in English. Here is the video. I will share the link. Here is to do the enrollment. There's a few activities that are for free. Others is there's a prize. We have a lot of events, like more than 20 activities during these 10 days. We have the introduction to conscientiology, and it's going to be in English, and we are organizing to translate into Romania if we can. So we are putting all our effort to do a simultaneous translation. We will try to do it. And we have the launch of some books, and some of them is going to be in Romanian, others in Spanish and in English. We'll have a course of Kim about original culture and multidimensionality. We will have the journal with some articles, scientific articles in English, and then some activities in different specialties of conscientiology. So we will have like self-conscious therapy, that is a multicultural intercompression connected to our with the theme of the international week. We will have some experience about consecutivus and evolution, about personal multi-existential cycle, very interesting. About existential program, life technique Boulevard Laboratory, from Asimbexis. We will have a CP2, personalities of the parapsychics workshop. We will have some college of serenology, of pacifismology and reurbanology. The challenge of maintaining our inner peace in times of urbex. Here is Reaprendentia with self-education through self-esteem and self-care. Iliani was going to be one of the instructors. Liderare, interesting about leadership and evolutionary entrepreneurship. There's a workshop of personal code of cosmoethics, types of extraterrestrial consciousnesses, para-ecological pathway. This is going to be an interesting practical activity. So we will work with energies during this activity. ICTNEPs I recommend a lot. We will have a Panther dialogue. If you have some doubt about Panther, or if you are practicing, you can ask any doubt to clarify. We have the conscientiogram in English, very interesting, a book of Dr. Vieira. We will have a workshop of conscientiological writing, so interesting too. Then we will have the International Agora, that all volunteers of the International of Conscientiology will be together discussing things about international, and then we will close with the Conscientiological Cafe. And then there's a bonus free activity, Mental Somatic Circle. So
Wow,
as you
that's
can
so many
see,
things.
yeah, a lot of things. I will stop sharing here, and putting here the International Week. All are invited to participate. So this is our last message.
Okay.
So
Well, I'd just like to say thanks again to everybody who tuned in. Really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Virginia and Adina, for organizing, for inviting me. Yeah, it was great.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mulțumesc tuturor.
So I will thank to Kim for participating. I will thank Adina for being here to support. Thank you so much for your participation here. There's other comments here, very interesting. She said that she's saying the connections between the two events. We will try to be there. Thanks, Rapendente, it's a partnership. Thank you. I think he's Fernandez, right?
Fernandez, yes.
Chico, thank you for being here. They are Australian. They are not Australian, but they live in Australia.
Yes, they're my neighbors.
Yeah, they're neighbors. They are in Adelaide, right? So thank you so much for your presence here. All people were with us during this 1 hour and 30 minutes. Thanks so much. And we will see you in Romania or in International Week or in Australia. Okay? Thank you so much and bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. How would we say in Romanian bye-bye?
La revedere!
La
Vă
revedere.
așteptăm în România la săptămâna internațională și în Australia.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Obrigada, gracias. Thank you.
Mulțumesc.
Vielen Dank.
Vielen Dank.
Danke. Of course. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.